Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We will begin with our prayer to be followed by the national anthem. May we request everyone to put yourselves in the presence of our Almighty God. Let us put ourselves in the presence of God. God Almighty, thank you for bringing us together to celebrate Cebuano culture and heritage through the sharing of our stories. We need this in this time of uncertainty, O God, to remind us of our identity as a people, unique and blessed and proud. This reminder must inspire us that whatever challenges we face, whether unseen, alien, and treacherous, can always be overcome if we are united in working for the present and the future, and for the heritage of our children and community. We pray for our present-day heroes who are fighting against the virus, as well as other threats that besiege us today. For our own people struggling to overcome these threats, and for those who have died, fallen, but never forgotten. Dearest God, heal our land. Amen.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, telas ng sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang inilang nakikinig sa manlulubi. Di ka pasisingil sa dagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit ang pagkaw. Ay hinatang tula kawin sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nakikinig. Ang ituwing at araw niya kailan pang ay di matitigil. Lumang ang araw ng waragin pagsinta. Buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang ligaya ng kay mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Maayong hapon mga Sugbuanon. Welcome to Gabi sa Kabilin 2021 online activities. This is an engaging space to appreciate and experience Cebu's culture and heritage. To formally start our webinar this afternoon, we would like to introduce the Gabi sa Kabilin Event Director and the Head for Content of the Rafi Culture and Heritage Unit, Ms. Heidi Palapar.
Maayong hapon kanatong tanan, especially to the Cebuanos who are watching our Gabi sa Kabilin 2021 webinar for March. It's a very interesting webinar that we have prepared for you this afternoon. But before I even talk about what the webinar is and who will be speaking for our webinar this afternoon, I'd just like to welcome everyone to, like I said, the Gabi sa Kabilin online activities. We all know that Gabi sa Kabilin, for those who are very familiar with the Gabi sa Kabilin, initially it was aimed to promote local Cebuano culture and heritage by encouraging Cebuanos to visit the museums. And but because this is a special time, very challenging time, we could not possibly crowd at one time and bring you to the museum. So we had to do something about it. And thus we are bringing Gabi sa Kabilin into your homes. And we, in a sense, we feel that all the more there is the need to do the Gabi sa Kabilin this year in the time of the pandemic, because we have to be reminded of who we are. And that's our identity, of course, and what we have. That's pride, our pride of place, our heritage. And we'd like to say that this is what is consistent, and it will strengthen and move us forward beyond this confusing and challenging times. And the heritage community or museum network also, we want to say that we are continuing to work together despite the pandemic to ensure that the promotion and preservation of Cebuano culture and heritage is still continuous and is relevant actually in this time. And it's also a special year for us. Our 15th run of the Gabi sa Kabilin is a special year because we all know that finally what we have been preparing for in the last 5 years has arrived. That's the 500th anniversary celebration of the arrival of Magellan, the birth of Christianity, and the victory at Mactan. And because this is it's very near already, no? Our celebration, our memorial of the 500 years, it's already this April. And because we wanted to prepare also for that, in the last 3 months, you will notice that the topics of our webinars are very much related to the celebration. And in fact, this afternoon, definitely, we are now going to be talking about something controversial, and that's the first Mass, the location, especially the location of the first Mass. And but before before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to again invite everyone ahead that the Gabi sa Kabilin partner museums and organizers have actually come up with what we call the GSK One Night Only, and this will be on April 16. This special online event gathers all the presentations of each of the partner museums, highlighting on the theme, and this year our theme is The Arrival. And this will be, as the name suggests, seen only for one night. Of course, this comes with a price, but it's only for 80 pesos, a small price to pay in order to celebrate the Cebuano, an identity with a history and culture worth sharing to the world. So please check our website, facebook.com/Gabiisa Kabilin Cebu, to know how to buy a ticket. I hope you will join us again for the April 16 Gabiisa Kabilin one night only. And just a reminder that after our webinar this afternoon, there's a Q&A. So more chance to speak to our speaker about and ask questions about what you feel you want clarified. And because this is really a very interesting topic we have, so you can ask your questions. We have time for that. Just type in your questions and we will try to accommodate all of them. And watch out for our trivia so you can win prizes. And of course, please register online and send in an evaluation to get an e-certificate for this webinar. And later on, I will also probably acknowledge, let's find out who are with us this afternoon in our webinar. Maybe I'm hoping that there will be really a lot of us joining this afternoon's webinar. And now for our speaker. He is the author of The Balangiga Conflict Revisited, which became a finalist for the 2003 National Book Award in History. He also wrote Latest Summer Shadows, essays on the history of Eastern Visayas, as well as Surat Binisaya, Deciphering Ancient Visayan Writing and Language. He is also a co-translator or co-editor of the Colonial Odyssey of Leyte 1521 to 1914, which was the winner of the 2006 National Book Award for Translation. These 4 books were published by New Day Publishers, if you want to get a copy of them. He is also co-editor, together with Dr. Jose Eleazar Bersales, of the book Hidden in Leyte, the Orville A. Babcock Diary of World War II, 1941 to 1945, published in 2019 by the Ramon Aboitiz Foundation Incorporated. That's us in Cebu City. He is a lifetime member of the Philippine National Historical Society, where he's also a member of the editorial advisory board of the Journal of History and has edited a number of recent issues of the journal. He served as Visayas representative from 2004 to 2016 and 2017 and 2019 in the National Committee on Historical Research of the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, and functioned as secretary of the NCHR Executive Council. He is full professor at the School of Health Sciences, the University of the Philippines, Manila, in Palo, Leyte. And he's a very important figure actually in our topic. Actually, there was a panel recently that was formed and who looked into, like I said, a controversial issue on the first mass. And is one of the key people actually who gave proof, who provided proof that the first mass is really where it is, already stated, actually already founded before, but again, proven once again. But anyway, he'll talk about more about that, and he provided also new findings to prove where the first mass was. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Rolando O. Borrinaga.
Salamat Heidi sa inyong generous introduction ug maayong hapon kanatong tanan.
Maayong hapon diha, sir. Unya, sir, we're really eagerly waiting for you to hear what you have for us about the first mass. Kay I know it's I believe there will be a lot of questions after this talk of yours. Kay daghan kay nang gawas ani nga mga storya, and then now we have further proof na padyo kay bagong gi-present ron nga proof, sir. So without ado, sir, thank you.
Okay, sige. So palihog na lang sa akong slide na first. Paki-share lang sa akong slide na lang. Okay, so ang title sa akong presentation, the Western Masawa site of the 51 Easter Sunday Mass. Next slide. Okay, the Butuan versus Limasawa controversy over the site of the first mass in the Philippines on March 31, 1521 erupted again a few years ago in the Diocese of Butuan, issued on April 22, 2018 a document declaring that this event happened in their geography. Titled Proclamation of the Diocese of Butuan of the place of the first mass in the Philippines, it asserted that the Masawa Island of 1521 was in the present Masaw Estuary and Pinamangkolan Hills, Butuan City. The 7-page document was signed by Most Reverend Antonio Ledesma, SJ, Apostolic Administrator of the Diocese. Next slide. So mao na ang ilang first mass site dito sa Butuan na sila ay taas kay nga cross o bronze statue sa Borrinaga sa first mass which I took a few years ago when I went to Butuan. And next slide. The posting of the Butuan proclamation on the social media in late June 2018 was preceded by some hype that it would be approved by the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines during its July meeting that year and included some goodbye Limasawa heckling from the Butuan side. Next slide. I'm back. Okay, sorry, naputol lang akong internet. Instead of approving the Butuan proclamation, Archbishop Romulo Valles, the CBCP president, ordered the Permanent Committee for the Cultural Heritage of the Church to conduct its own investigation of the first mass controversy. Next slide. This development in the CBCP accorded me a parallel opportunity to present additional documentary evidence that Limasawa, now an island municipality in southern Leyte, was the historical Masawa where the recorded first mass on Philippine soil was celebrated on Easter Sunday in 1521. Next. Now, new evidence would show that Limasawa was phonetically called Masawa with its dagdagan kaning spelling pero ang pronunciation na ni Masawa from the Spanish years until 1602 before Father Combes labeled it as Limasawa in the 1660s. Next slide. Now, the term first mass was introduced in the 1660s by Father Francisco Culin, who erroneously placed the event in Butuan. It is itself controversial and equally contested on behalf of Homonhon Island in Samar. Thus, I use here the more neutral and restrictive term Easter Sunday Mass in 1521. Next slide. In a paper published in 2008, I had theorized that the first Mass event was held in western Limasawa and not on the southeastern part of the island, on which a national shrine complex has been built. Here I will present illustrative photos and complementary narrative to bolster my 10-year-old theory. Next slide. Now, a number of primary sources would show that the present Limasawa Island in southern Leyte was phonetically called Masawa throughout the 16th century. A confounding factor in the Spanish transcriptions of the island's name could be attributed to the fact that the spoken S letter among the Visayan borders on the Z sound, and there is no letter W in the Spanish alphabet, which sound was represented in different ways. Thus, we have varied spellings of its name in the literature. Next slide. Now, the primary sources that contain the phonetical Masawa name include 7 items that I submitted to the Mojares panel, and they have different spellings, but the same pronunciation. So the Limasawa Pat, Pigafita account, Albus Lag, the Mafra account, the Gaspi Chronicles, and Encomienda Grant document, and a Jesuit letter in 1602. Next slide. Now, my first archaeological document for is the Limasawa Pat, which I discovered sometime in 2015 together with a team from National NCCA Cultural Mapping Team during when we went into cultural mapping together with some locals. Next slide. Now it has been written with Baybayin, and Baybayin our old script, and there are two words there that establish at least establish the Limasawa uh, origin. One word there is bakalag, which is human sacrifice, and then this part actually contained the word Masawa, which is actually the old name of Limasawa. Next slide. The Masawa name on the Limasawa pat was written in Baybayin, the ancient script of the Filipinos. This Chinese Siladonware and its Baybayin writing discovered in 2015 could be dated before the Spanish contact in 1521. Next. So the next document is Pigafita account. The place name of the site of the Easter Sunday Mass in 1521 is spelled as Masawa in the relevant section. But the Pigafita map of the immediate geography had the island labeled as Masana. Next slide. That slide. The label there is Masana, but in the text it was Masawa. Next slide. Now, Francisco Albo was actually the pilot of the mother boat, flagship Magellan, and he had written some narratives, particularly about latitude of the area, something like that. Now, for him, the name of the place where a cross was planted on a mountain top was Masaba. Other sources referring to Albo wrote it as Masava. Next slide. Now, the fourth document I submitted was the account of Henis de Mafra, who was a member of both the Magellan expedition in 1521 and the Villalobos expedition in 1543. He had a different spelling of Masawa, letter C with a tail and GUA at the end. So it is a place that we had visited twice. Next slide. So the fifth document I submitted was an item from the Legazpi Chronicle, the name of this place that was searched by members of the Legazpi expedition in 1565, based on the reports of the Villalobos expedition. They were guided by the reports of the Villalobos expedition, was spelled as letter Z, letter ZA and GUA. Next slide. And then around 1521, there was a document of encomienda grants presented to various Spaniards around the country, and the name of the places and encomienda assignment was written as Masagua. Next slide. So the seventh document I submitted was a Jesuit letter in 1602. The name of this island that was visited by Jesuit Father Fabricius Arsali in 1600s was Masagua in one sentence of the letter and Limasawa in another sentence. Its chief was Mancao, who would become famous later because of the Mancao revolt in 1621, 1622. Anyway, my whole purpose there was to establish that at least for several decades, for almost a century, the name of what we now call Limasawa was Masawa. In the 1660s, the phonetic Masawa in the island's name would be added different prefixes by three Jesuits. Father Colin called it Dimasawa, Father Combes called it Limasawa, and Father Alcina called it Himasawa. Now, Father Combes' Limasawa name stuck, presumably because it was used as label of the island, spelled as Limasawa, on the first map of the Philippines made by Jesuit Father Pedro Morillo Velarde in 1734. Next slide. Okay, that's the part of the map of Leyte. Murag tambok pa kaniadto ang Leyte. The first map of 1734. And the at the bottom is Limasawa, and of course the island on the right is Panaon. Next slide. Okay, so we have there a painting of the first mass in the Philippines by Butong Francisco. Next slide. Anyway, the Easter Sunday Mass in 1521 was labeled in 1663 as First Mass, Primera Misa by Father Colin, who placed the event and the planting of the cross in Butuan. This was born thus was born the tradition, Butuan tradition of a controversial issue in Philippine history, which they celebrated for more than 200 years. So the first Mass actually was celebrated in Butuan for more than 200 years. But historians now admit that Father Colin's claim was erroneous and was based on a garbled translation of Pigafetta by Ramosio sometime in the 1550s. Next slide. Then around the 1895, the 1800 Carlo Amorete edition of Antonio Pigafetta's account in Italian about the first circumnavigation of the world, which was published in 1800s, reached the attention of Filipino historians and intellectuals. In a footnote, Amorete surmised that Limasawa in an old map may be Misana, and thus was born the Limasawa tradition of the first Mass. So the Limasawa tradition of the first Mass actually was born around 1895. Thereafter, the Filipino intellectual community led by Dr. Pardo de Tavera dismissed the Butuan claim to the first Mass as un suceso imaginado, an imaginary event, and upheld Limasawa as the ancient Masawa, the site of this famous event in the Catholic world. Next slide. Now, a book on the fourth centennial of the discovery of the Philippines by Magellan suggests that Limasawa started commemorating the first Mass only on March 31, 1921. So previous to that, it was Butuan that celebrated this event. Next slide. Now, when Limasawa started commemorating the first Mass, presumably a century ago, the organizers situated this event in the southeastern part of the island, on which sea waters the Magellan expedition and their ships first met the Masawa natives on March 28, 1521. This historical site is now part of Magallanes, which was still a situ in early 1950s. Next slide. The historical marker installed here by the Philippine Historical Committee in 1950, immortalized Limasawa's role in the following text. First Mass in the Philippines, celebrated here on Easter Sunday, 31 March 1521, when Magellan landed on this island of Limasawa on his voyage around the world. Early on the morning, Magellan sent ashore priest Pedro de Valderrama with men to prepare a mass and to inform Raja Colombo through an interpreter that he and his men would land to attend. The Raja showed consent by sending gifts. As Magellan and his men approached the shore, a salvo of 6 guns was fired as a sign of peace. Rajas Colombo and Siago each embraced Magellan, flanked him, and together with the sailors, they marched to the place of worship. During the mass, the Rajas remained on their knees with clasped hands. At the elevation, the ships fired all their artillery in response to musket signal from the shore. Next slide. A small billboard near the marker in Barangay Magallanes tells that the place is now recognized as the national shrine of the first Mass in the Philippines on March 13, 1521 in Limasawa, Southern Leyte. Next slide. Now, in March to April 1996, the Butuan side revived the first mass controversy when it embarked on a high-profile commemoration on the 475th anniversary of this event. Compared to the riots in Limasawa, Butuan got more prominent visitors that year, as well as better coverage and publicity on national TV and in the newspapers. Next slide. In response to this controversy, the National Historical Institute created an ad hoc panel in May 1996, which aimed to resolve a very sensitive historical issue facing our country and our people. The panel was composed of retired Supreme Court Justice Emilio Gangcaico, lawyer Bartolome Fernandez, and Dr. Maria Luisa Camagay. Next slide. In March 1998, the Gangcaico panel submitted the resolution to the NHI. They concluded that upon a preponderance of evidence called from the primary sources, the first ever Christian Mass on Philippine soil, March 31, 1521, was celebrated in the island of Limasawa, south of Leyte. Next slide. However, one of the panel's key findings proved refutable when confronted with a primary source that the NHI had allegedly not accepted and even ignored at the time. The Gangcaico panel had asserted that in item 7, the anchoring facilities at Limasawa did not pose any problem for Magellan's fleet, which anchored near or at some safe distance from the island off the eastern shore. Next slide. But this finding could be refuted by a primary source, the eyewitness account of Hines de Mafra, which surfaced in 1920. He was a member of both the Magellan expedition in 1521 and the Villalobos expedition in 1543, and was the only Spaniard known to have visited Masawa twice. He wrote, the island Masawa has a good harbor in its western side and is inhabited. Magellan, that is Magellan, anchored the fleet in that port, western port. Then the natives came out to welcome the fleet. Next slide. Now, it was this contested premise that inspired me to write the paper, which theorized that Barangay Triana in western Limasawa was the site of the first mass in 1521. Sorry, get cut off again. My internet connection. In the literature of primary sources, it was only the Mafra who mentioned about the Western Harbor in Masawa. This geographic landmark was also described in the chronicle of the Legazpi expedition in 1565 and had been sailed into by members of its crew. The relevant narrative about Masawa is quoted as follows. This is from the Legazpi expedition. Now, because of the report of Bernardo de la Torre in 1554 that says that the village was located on the eastern side of the island and the landing place for ships at the west side, the ships with on board the Prior and Maese de Campo proceeded to that part of the island where the village was said to be. However, they did not find a single house, no Indio, nay, nothing at all, after which they continued northward along the coast till reaching the landing place at the western side. There they saw only one Indio who shouted at them from a rock cropping, that which I indicated with a rectangle. They shouted back at him, but when the Indio heard that they were Spaniards, he came down from his rock via a ladder of ropes and rattan, because they thought that he would be coming to the shore to meet the men. They waited for a long time for him. But all the Indio did was that after coming down from the rock, he went up a low hill where a small hut was standing. He put fire to it, and after that went furiously back to his rock, climbing up via the same ladder, and once at the top, he cut it and let it drop, and all the while shouting at the sailors. The latter went back to aboard and reported these matters. Next slide. So what I read just now was just one paragraph narrative about Masawa in the Legazpi Chronicle, and just last year also the Archivo General de Indias in Seville released this map of the Legazpi expedition at the time when they were still around the time. I believe they were still in Masawa at that time. So it shows that Masawa there is actually separated from Butuan, which is down below. Butuan, and then Masawa is beside an island here, which is we now know as Pintoyan. So Masawa is actually not in near Butuan at all. Next slide. The above quoted narrative clearly points out that Masawa matches the geographic details still extant in the present Limasawa, and that it has some links to the Easter Sunday Mass in 1521 that I theorized to have been celebrated in the island. And so, So in the previous, can you go back to the previous slide? Please. No. Back. One more. Okay. I mark in a rectangular box the approximate spot where Legazpi's crew saw the only human in Limasawa who interacted with them. I also mark with a round figure the theoretical low hill that the Limasawa person climbed up to burn a hut. The line linking the two places indicates the path taken by this person from climbing down the rock promontory to climbing the hill and back. Father Peter Screws had footnoted under this narrative that he would not object to any claim that the mentioned hilltop was the location of the cross planted 44 years earlier in 1521. On my part, I theorized that the burned hut had sheltered the cross planted in 1521. The burning appeared to be a sign of protest and displeasure against the Spaniards who had assured the locals that the cross would protect them from evil and all kinds of harm. Sadly, Masawa was attacked by the Portuguese along with Tindaya and Aboyo of the original Islas Filipinas some 2 years before Legazpi's arrival in 1565. Of interest, the rock promontory and the harbor in Limasawa are called Saob Point and Saob Bay. Saob is an ancient Visayan word, no longer used for entry point of demons and evil. Now, did Saob label refer to the Portuguese or to the Spaniards or both? Next slide. Uh, okay, next. Okay, so when the Mojares panel went to Limasawa after my hearing, the hearing with me in April 2018, we actually climbed to this place indicated in the previous map, which I theorized was the site of the cross planted in Masawa in 1521, and not in the southern part of the island. Next slide. Now, when I presented the Barangay Triana paper in conferences in 2007 and 2008 until its publication in the Journal of History, all I had in it were data and facts taken from primary and secondary sources, including documents, photos, published papers, and articles, and from interviews with former students who came from Limasawa. I had not yet visited Limasawa at the time. Also, the Google Earth map of Limasawa was still fuzzy and would blur when zoomed, and therefore could not provide much visual details around the island. I first visited Limasawa in 2013 with a German TV film TV team filming a documentary on the Magellan expedition, and have been there 5 times since then. And I have taken a closer and ground level look at a place and geography that had been immortalized by Antonio Pigafetta, Francisco Albo, and Hennes de Mafra of the Magellan expedition in 1521. In the chronicles of the Villalobos expedition in the 1540s and the Legazpi chronicle in 1565, and in the letter of the earliest visit of Jesuit Father Cersali in 1602. Fast forward to 2018, and there was another effort to trace out the issue through the symposium on the controversial site of the first Easter Mass in the Philippines, which was held at St. Paul University in Surigao City on June 21, 2018. This new development prompted me to gather additional evidence to complement my theory on the Western Masawa site of the Easter Sunday Mass in 1521, even if I begged off from attending the symposium. At last, the Google Earth map now provides clearer top-view image of the Limasawa terrain, including the outlines of roads and settlements, and even the roofs of houses when zoomed, images that otherwise cannot be seen in photos and actual viewing from the ground. Now, I marked on the Google Earth image of Central Limasawa certain features associated with the theory that the Easter Sunday Mass in 1521 was celebrated in the area of the present Barangay Triana. The portion of Saob Bay with oblong enclosure matches the specification of the Western Harbor noted by Hennes de Mafra in 1521 and 1543, and by the Legazpi expedition in 1565. The area marked by a circle is the hilltop that overlooks Barangay Triana and Saob Bay. I theorize that the 1521 cross on Masawa was planted here and not elsewhere south of the island. Next slide. Anyway, the rectangle enclosure in the previous slide marked the area on which now stand the Aglipayan Church and the Catholic Church beside each other in Barangay Triana. In June 2018, just before the Surigao Conference, I concluded that this area was the approximate site of the Easter Sunday Mass on March 31, March 1521. During earlier trips to Limasawa, I had entertained the idea that the 1521 First Mass was celebrated on the present municipal government compound, shown on the slide, which is now part of Barangay Kabulihan, that separated from Barangay Triana sometime in the 1980s. But I realized that later that this property was acquired, developed, and assumed public importance only after Limasawa became a full-fledged municipality in 1989. Next slide. There must be a prior public place in Barangay Triana, and I concluded that this was in the area now occupied by the two churches and the adjacent campus of Limasawa Elementary School, where community activities and festivities were held. So the slide shows the Catholic Church of Barangay Triana on the left and the Aglipayan Church on the right. Now, I invest much meaning and interpretation on the possibility that when Riesuelo, petty king, Bangkao of Masawa converted to Christianity in 1602, he had a church of temporary materials symbolically erected on the site of the Easter Sunday Mass in 1521, which was attended by his forebears, Raha Colombo and Raha Xiawi, and the memory of which was probably remained among his people. Later, a church made of limestone and coral stones replaced the temporary structure and would stand on this spot for centuries. Around the turn of the 20th century, the people of Limasawa turned back on the Catholic Church and converted to the Aglipayan faith in Masi. So, around 1907, nag-Aglipayan ang mga taga Limasawa. Wa na inhabilin sa Katoliko. In many places where the new religion had taken root, so for instance, Almeria and Biliran province and even Padre Burgos in southern Leyte, the Aglipayan hierarchy fully took over the church buildings, convents, and facilities of the Catholics. But in Limasawa, the Aglipayan converts refused to do this. Instead, they just erected a separate building for their worship beside the Catholic Church that they left to the elements and lay abandoned and in ruins when documented in 1953. This building was only rehabilitated starting around 1958 when a Catholic mission was established in Limasawa. Next slide. Now, the slide shows the recently repaired, rehabilitated church of Catholic Church in Triana. Now, why did the people of Limasawa chose to keep the building of the Catholic Church, a faith that they left behind a century ago, on the spot where it was erected? It is convenient to believe that this was part of the local tradition to keep the memory of Raha Bangkao of history and myth alive in the island. After all, the locals still identify Bangkao's freshwater well in Barangay Magallanes. They also remember the names of the two wives, Tirana and Ojaja, that their chief apparently retained, to the dismay of Father Zersale in 1602, when he took exemption of the one-wife-only policy for polygamous husbands and proceeded anyway to baptize Bangkao's children as Christians. Now, was the decision of the Aglipayan converts to keep the Catholic Church building in Barangay Triana somehow linked to the local subconscious attempt to immortalize a spot that may have been the site of the first Easter Sunday Mass in 1521? So that's my presentation. Thank you. Okay, that's a summary of that slide summary provides a summary of my presentation and some painting artworks and graphics. Thank you. Daghang salamat.
Daghan kaayong salamat, Sir Rolly. Like I said, it is very interesting. I have my own questions even. I want these clarified, sir. But before that, I'd like to acknowledge first those who are with us in this webinar, Sir Rolly. Definitely, we have the Diocese of Maasin. They even, in fact, asked permission to cross-post your webinar, sir. So thank you to the Diocese of Maasin. We also have audiences coming from Dumaguete, Iligan, Tacloban, Surigao, Leyte, Toledo City here in Cebu, Negros, and even Isabela. Are we talking of Isabela in the Isabela province? Okay. And we have also actually students who are here, sir, from Mandaue City Science High School and the Mandaue City School for the Arts. Uy, purus Mandaue. Thank you very much, no? For joining us this afternoon. And like I said, I find this very interesting. I have several questions, sir. First and foremost, sir, I'd like to ask, why do you refer to this, sir, as Easter Sunday Mass, not calling it the first Mass? Is there like a reason behind that, or sir? Do you think there is another first Mass that we are looking at?
Actually, ang National Historical Commission of the Philippines na nagkuhan nga himo na ning first Easter Sunday Mass or something like that. Kay doon naman gi-claim ang Pangasinan, doon na sad sila claim nga dito ang first Mass ila mga 1300s plus ang diri sa Eastern Samar mo claim pod sila nga most likely dito sa Humonhon, although wala sila documentation. Plus of course ang Butuan is also claiming sa Mass. So gikuan na lang na nga specific na lang nga kay ang doon na sa claim diri sa Bicol, something like that. So gibutang na lang nga first Easter Sunday Mass.
Okay, mo day na siya, sir. Okay. Daghan tag mga ubang claims niya, but yeah, better first Easter Sunday Mass na lang. Another question, sir, ba? Ang ako, why is it that we initially believed that the first Easter Sunday Mass happened in Butuan, when in fact the evidences you showed actually and documented, pagyud, sir, the name itself is Masawa. It's really far from the name of Butuan. Why is that, sir? Nga? What did yes, sir?
Okay. Ang kuan man gud ana nga for a very long time ang first person pigapita account, ang ninggawas nga pigapita account was the mistranslation ni Ramosyo nga nag-ingon nga ang Butuan ang site sa first Mass. Ang pigapita ninggawas sa Ambrosian Library, it first came out 1800s na published in Italian, plus ning abot sa atong Filipino intellectual community 1890s na. So, until mga 1890, ang document lang available nga nag-ingon nga ang first Mass dito sa Butuan. Until ninggawas na ang Amoretti account. About 1890.
But prior to that, sir, ang gisuwat gyud the name Butuan.
Butuan gyud sa katong mistranslation. Sa mistranslation.
Yeah, in the mistranslation. Oh, okay. That is why we have the initial belief that the first Easter Sunday Mass was in Butuan. Very interesting, sir, that ang imuhang title sa paper is really the phonetic. The evidences you showed was really the phonetic side of the name. Masawa, Masagwa, you have the different names there. Oo. Another, sir, it has something to do with we established that it's the Masawa now, and it's accepted by the National Historical Commission of the Philippines that it's Limasawa. But why was it initially believed that the site of the Mass and the cross, that was planted was in the southeastern side, when in fact, klaro makay people ang the other side, the western side, sir? Why did they believe that it was in the eastern side in the first place?
Kay actually ang diha sa Pigafita account wa man gud klaro ni Pigafita nga pag yun na nga diha sila ning abot sa south southeastern side. Actually nakangadto na ko sa Limasawa na gitrace na namo kung diin to ang daog nga nakita nila the night before. So
Yeah.
so sa kuan ang bright light. So ang kuan ana nga pagka after in the afternoon si ingon si Pigafita we we uh, we we lifted our anchors and anchored near the residence of the chiefs. So wa siya magkuan og direction. Ang makalink ana ang kuan ragyod ang kuan ni Henes de Mafra nga didto sila nag-anchor sa Western Harbor. Mao na ang kuan ang pero at the time kaniadtong mga 1920 mao pa lang pud to ang pag-appear sa kang Henes de Mafra account dito sa Spain. So at the time moingon ra gito sila nga dito lang sa southeastern side. But that dili na mao ang nahitabo.
Was this not presented, sir, because there were 3 panels actually later that the government organized, 1998 and 2002, was it? I'm not sure if it was 2002, somewhere in 2000, and then 2018. So wala to ning lutaw. It did not float this Henes de Mafra's document.
Mura gi-ignore ang Henes de Mafra document sa previous 2 panels. Nga kuan gi-ignore nga primary evidence. Pero karon gi kuan na sa Mojares Panel gi-accept nila nga primary evidence. In fact, sa kanang sa ilang sa Butuan presentation karon ang more makuan ra gid nila ang ma-present ang gi-present ra nila nga considered nga primary evidence ang Henes de Mafra account lang. Ang uban nilang gi-present mga kuan na regurgitated mga new opinions, new secondary sources.
Pero kang Henes de Mafra, sir, was really a first source, primary source. Okay,
Primary source.
Sir. You mentioned also, sir, that in March to April 1996, Butuan revived the first mass controversy and even celebrated or commemorated its 475th anniversary. Dito. But they did this even after it was already accepted in the intellectual community that
Limasawa.
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 What happened, Kaha, sir? What do you think led them to revive that belief that the first Easter Sunday Mass, happened in Butuan?
Actually, ang ilang ko na to nga nanganday sa Limasawa kay kuan tungod kay gilabanan ang Limasawa ni Imelda or something like that. Ingon ang ilang kuan tungod kay backing ni Imelda mo na nga gikuan so they tried to make some noise.
Oh, okay. So
to be fair, nag-research gid ang Butuan side.
Okay, sir. But before we proceed to other questions, sir, and I'd like to thank you for clarifying these things with me, sir, because these are mine questions. But we will have other questions already. And for those who still want to have to pitch in their questions, please do not hesitate to do so by typing your questions in the comment section of our FB page, where we're streaming this webinar. But before we go to the questions, let's give Sir Rolly a little bit of time to breathe. Let's have the first trivia questions. The first question, please, trivia. Fast fingers, please. The first one who answers gets the prize. Who ordered the Permanent Committee for the Cultural Heritage of the Church to conduct its own investigation of the first mass controversy? I hope we have a lot of people who were listening to that part, and please type your answers. Maybe later we already know who's the winner for our first trivia question. Let's go to our first question from the audience. Let's flash it, please. From John Gilbert R. Bulitin. Is there any evidence that Magellan landed in the town of Cabalian? Where is that? Then passed through the Wawa Strait in Liloan, southern Leyte, before they arrived in Limasawa Island.
Actually, there is a mention in Pigafita nga ning agi sila sa Abarien. Abarien na ako na ang ilang giagian gikan sa Homonhon ning agi sila sa Hibusong, Hiyunangan, and Abarien. Actually, my interpretation is that Abarien actually refers to Kabalian. So I still would prefer na nga tagaan gyud og historical marker ang Kabalian. Ang problema man gud sa Kabalian is that when the National Centennial Committee basically thought of where to put the markers, do na sila duha nga place diha sa map ni Pigafetta, Sinalo og Abarien. Ang wala mahatagi og kanang marker kay dili sila sigurado unsa na asa na ang Sinalo og ang Abarien. Ang akong kananang ang Abarien Kabalian gid. Ang problema kay wa nay Kabalian sa mapa. Ang naa na sa mapa San Juan, Southern Leyte, but it can still be argued. I believe na pwede pa mahabulan ang Kabalian og marker. Wa sila moagi sa Wawa Strait kay dili na maka murag mabaw masangyad diha ang mga galleon. So dito gid sila ning kuan sa south, nag-turn south dito sa Pintoyan and sa Panaon Island.
So sir, ning agis las Kabalian but not in Wawa Strait.
Dili sa Wawa Strait. Dili sila makaagi diha kay laom ang
Mabaura.
Mabaura.
Okay, thank you for your question, and I don't think we have a winner yet for our first trivia question. No worries. We are going to be posting the trivia questions for those who want to review, and maybe you can get to answer also later. But let's proceed to the next question. From Paulo Cabling, thank you for your question. How about the first mass in Bolinao, Pangasinan? Nanggawas na ang mga claims, sir. How inaccurate was this, although it said that it happened before 1521?
There's actually mga claim nga Franciscans kuno katong travels ni Ibn Battuta nga nakamit kuno siya kang Princess Ordoha, but the place actually nga ingon na Tawalisi ba to ang place, controversial pa na og dito bagid na sa Pangasinan. Dili pa kayo na klaro. There was only one mention of that in the dili man ingon nga Pangasinan nang kuan. There's a place, I think that was Tawalisi nga nangadtuan ko no during a storm. They were driven to that place. So
okay.
Mo nang i-claim nga doon ay kuan, pero kay na doon nagibutangan na pud nila ilang marker dito nya na sila kuan. So mo na diha ang problema lang diha kay dili kaayo makuanan ang documentation.
Sir, just a question. When you say gibutangan nilang marker, was it their own marker
Local,
but not
local?
Okay.
Local marker.
Okay. All right. I think even if we don't have a winner for our first trivia question, maybe we can proceed to the second one. Maybe we will get a winner from this. Let's give time for Sir Rolly to pause a bit. Here's our second trivia question. Fast finger, please. Who was the priest who erroneously placed the first mass in Butuan in the 1660? Okay. Ang una lang yun nga maka-answer. No worries if you won't be able to answer now. We will be posting this our trivia questions, and definitely you can still answer later. Okay, Let's go to our third question from Amelia Bonotan. I would like to ask, thank you by the way for your question, ma'am. I'd like to ask if the committee commissioned by CBCP to make its independent study has completed the study. If so, what is the findings?
Naman na, pwede ma-download ninyo ang Mojares Panel report from the internet. Naman.
I think they want to know, si Ma'am Bonotan wants to know, sir, about the CBCP findings. Katong imong gi-mention nga gipahimo ni Archbishop Romulo Valles, was it included in the sir, in the Mojares Panel findings, or did they also have their own findings?
Well, murag ning kuan na sila sa Mojares Panel, nag-defer na sila. In fact, ang usa ka seat, one of the seat in the Mojares Panel belong to CBCP seat. Doon na sila usa ka seat
representative.
Plus doon na sila mga every hearing doon na gid sila gipadala ang ilang Church Historians Association of the Philippines. Doon ay mo sit in, participated sila sa hearing and deliberation. Doon na sila ikuan representation.
So the CBCP deferred or kanang agreed to the findings of the Mojares Panel, and they were also part of the panel.
They participated.
They participated. Okay, thank you, sir. Let's have another question before we go to our third trivia. Okay, still from the same, no, this was already given. The question was already asked. Do we have another question? I have a question here, sir. It's from an NQC. Because this is a viewer from the NQC cross-post of the webinar, sir. And it's asking, we didn't get the name. Did we get the name? But anyway, says, good afternoon, sir. Doc Rowley, is there any write-up that we can avail of for us to have a copy of your wonderful findings? Your own findings, I think, sir, they want more, they want the elaboration, they want more explanation, but based on your findings, sir. Is Sir Rowley still here?
Okay, na-auto da kong internet. Sunod.
Okay, it's okay, sir, but you're back. Naaba ko ng write-up, sir, imuhag yung own write-up that we can read, good sir. Many are interested to read your own write-up of the proof that you provided in the Mojares panel, sir. Naaba ko no?
Actually, ma-review na. The slides that I showed were the same slides that I showed to the panel. So they can just review.
But you also mentioned, sir, baya nga imuhang na-publish na ni imuhang mga findings, sir, way ahead in the 2007 ba to, sir?
Doon na nakoy previous nga publication. On Barangay Triana as the theoretical site of the first mass. Ako na lang gi-enhance dinhi sa kini nga sa bag-o nako nga paper. Ako na lang nang gi-enhance o gidugangan og gidugangan nako og mga data and facts based on ground level data nga ako naging nakitaan at ground level.
Yeah. So napunan ang proof ni sir because after he published those initial nga findings niya in the, I think katong Journal of History ba to, sir? And then so now he has more proof actually that he presented lately in the 2018 Mojares panel. Okay, can we go to our third trivia? But do we have winners already for our first and second? The first trivia winner is Miss Amelia Bonotan. Thank you, ma'am, for participating in our trivia. One of our members here of the Secretariat of the GSK Organizing Committee will call you or get hold of you to let you know how we can give you your prize. Who is this, the winner of the second trivia? Do we have the winner already? The second trivia winner is John Michael Baroque. Thank you for participating, and congratulations to our two winners. Lagi, I mentioned this already. A member of our organizing committee will be getting hold of you for your prizes. Thank you, and let's go to our third trivia question. Fast fingers. Here's trivia number 3. Who led the dismissal of the Butuan claim on the first mass and called it un suceso imaginado, an imaginary event, and upheld Limasawa Island as the ancient Mazawa? Okay, let's see who gets the prize for our trivia number 3. And don't worry, because even if we're up to trivia number 3 lang tingali karon, no, but we still have 2 more trivias that we will be posting, and again we are going to be giving a prize to those who will be typing in first the correct answer. Thank you. Do we still have another question? Let's have our last question. It's our last question from Faye. Uy, kaila ko ani. Faye is asking, Faye de la Serna, thank you for your question. Naminaw, finally, naminaw si Faye. Is there a possibility that NHCP will approve that the shrine, I think the shrine in Magallanes now, sir, be transferred to the new site? Or will a new monument or shrine be erected in the new site and keeping still the old, the memorial there, the monument in the old site?
Murag doon na legalities kay doon naman gay law na declaring ang Magallanes is the shrine of the first mass. So doon ay legalities ana.
Yeah. So I think sir is saying dili pa na dayon-dayon kung mabalhin man gani. Anyway, so I hope that answers your question, Faye. Thank you for your question. We have also our winner for the third trivia, and it's Ms. Charisse Quijano. Thank you for participating in our trivia. All right. Sir, before we close, I really have something to ask you. I know something came up. There's an update actually. You told me about this, but I also read about this, sir, about something that came up after the findings was already given in 2018, but this came about only this year, probably no withholding because of the pandemic. Sir, but that is something that we are really tracking, sir, if this will prosper. I know you, because of your troubles in trying to really prove, no, that and continue to prove that Limasawa is really the site of the first Easter Sunday Mass, and the Mojares Panel also was involved in this. You're facing actually a case now because from one of the how do you call this? One of those who gave proof for Butuan, for the Butuan side, and we're hoping, sir, that the case will not prosper, of course, and that at some point everything will, all of these will be cleared up.
Hopefully.
But you're okay, sir. You're confident that everything will just be will really fall into place.
Yes. It's part of the territory.
Okay, murag ana da si Sir Ani. Anyway, Sir Rolly, daghan kaayong salamat sa imuhang pagdawat sa amuhang invitation to be our speaker for our third webinar in our GSK or Gabi sa Kabilin online activities. This is actually we have a series actually from January to March leading to the April celebration itself. And we're so happy that Sir Rolly really took time and be with us to share his findings. That was really a big, how do you call this? A big consideration in the results of the Mojares Panel findings. And daghan kayong salamat, Sir Rolly. And for that, we'd like to present to you our certificate of appreciation. Can we flash our certificate of appreciation given to Dr. Rolando O. Borrinaga for sharing his expertise and time as resource speaker of the webinar, The First Mass Latest Inquiry, during the Gabi sa Kabilin 2021 online activity for March, given this 26th of March 2021 at the Rafi Kabilin Center, and is signed by Rafi President and CEO, Ms. Amaya Aboitis Fansler. Thank you very much, Sir Rolly. Any last
Salamat.
words ka,
Salamat.
sir? No
Wala
last
na.
words. Ano? Murang nasulti na tala ni sir. And for those who are interested actually in really knowing about the taas kaayo to sir ang Mojares Panel findings, you can actually
Yes, yes.
download it. We have also read it ourselves, and Sir Rolly was really very much a key there in the results of the Mojares Panel. Daghan kayong salamat, Sir Rolly. Hopefully, we can still invite you for another webinar in the future, sir. Thank you,
Fine.
sir.
That's good. Thank
And with that, we are going to, we would like to give our thanks actually to those people who made our webinar possible. Of course, first and foremost, we would like to thank the host for our GSK online activity for this March, the Rafi, the Kabilin Center, Rafi TKC. And we also like to thank all our 2021 GSK partner museums and sites, and also to our organizing committee of the GSK, Rave, Martel, Arlene, Renren, Sig, Melka, and Mac. Thank you very much. And we'd also like to acknowledge the help of uh, our backup, no, the Rafi IT team. Thank you very much, especially to Edward. And for our marketing and promotions team, our CHU CRM, Faye, and a Rafi BDG, and including our SMT, especially to Chad. For inviting the schools. Hopefully, please don't forget that our webinar is posted in the Gabi sa Kabilin FB site, and you can review it for those who have not seen it, or please invite the others who have not seen it, because it's still going to be there, so they will still be able to watch the webinar later. And we'd like to, again, of course, I mentioned this at the start, we'd like to invite you to join us for the Gabi sa Kabilin one night only on April 16. We are already, with long time, we've already selling tickets, no, and there are many people already who started to buy the tickets. I hope you can join us. It's going to be a special night. You will see different cultural presentations and video documentaries from our partner museums and sites for this year's Gabi sa Kabilin. The ticket is only at 80 pesos. We have instructions there on how you can buy the tickets. And like I said, this is online, so don't worry. You will be safe in the comforts of your home on April 16 when you join us for the Gabi sa Kabilin one night only. And we'd like to invite also, if you want, you can join us also to know more about what Gabi sa Kabilin one night only is. We are having a press con actually. Would like to invite you if you can join us in our live streaming of the GSK Ono PressCon on March 29. That's already Monday morning at 10 a.m. And you can even chat also your questions about what Gabi sa Kabilin one night only is. And we'd like to remind before you leave, for those who want to get an e-certificate for participating in this event, please make sure to fill out our registration form as well as the evaluation form that is posted. That will be posted right after this webinar. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone, to those who attended our third Gabi sa Kabilin online activities for 2021. And I don't think we will have a webinar actually in April, because we are preparing ourselves for the big GSK Ono. So I hope you enjoyed our activity this afternoon. Daghan kaayong salamat and enjoy the rest of the day. Keep safe, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for sharing your valuable time and for participating in our webinar today. We hope to see you again next month for another Gabi sa Kabilin online activity to appreciate and experience Cebu's culture and heritage. Please don't forget to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, daghang salamat.